Coerthas, a once beautiful, mountainous region dressed in lush grasslands and towering pine trees. It was home to a sprawling ecosystem of diverse alpine flora and fauna. You could feel the kiss of flowers against your legs, or spend your nights listening to the crickets beneath a mild, starry sky. And then came the calamity. The fragile balance of etheric stability in Coerthas utterly collapsed, rendering an inescapable, unforgiving, frozen apocalypse. The temperatures in Coerthas plummeted, and the once life-giving rains turned to snow. The rapid descent of meteorological phenomena resulted in a wave of almost instant glaciation. Flags froze in place, rivers ceased to flow, and the once emerald landscape was swallowed whole by sheets of white. For some, escape was simply impossible. And so today we will be exploring just one of those forsaken pathways, what led to its destruction, and what, if anything, remains. My name is Juliet, and this is the Eorzean Historian. Coerthas Western Highlands currently rests as a frigid wasteland, accessible only from the north on foot or flight from the southeast. But this wasn't always the case. Prior to being sundered from its neighbor, the Central Highlands, it was connected by a bridge known as Gargoyle Crossing. While unremarkable, this bridge stood as a vital pass that allowed Ishgardians to reliably settle into the Western Highlands, and to build a series of camps, vigils, and even a hamlet known as Falcon's Nest. Now, while Coerthas was no stranger to snowy winters, the landscape nor the structures within were built for a winter of cataclysmic proportions. When Dalamud fell from the sky, the aether around Coerthas became so unstable that temperatures plummeted within a matter of minutes. Houses, ships, and even people froze where they stood. And those who survived the first wave of cold only awoke to an uninhabitable wasteland. The ecological disaster killed off species and plants in hours, and those who remained in hamlets and camps far from Ishgard realized that life as they knew it would be completely unsustainable. And so many of them fled what remained and made for the warmth of the capital city. And while those who escaped the Coerthan Eastern Lowlands via Griffin Crossing did so safely, those who survived in Coerthas Western Highlands did not. Set to depart from Falcon's Nest, the survivors of the disaster made their way north, crossing over River's Meet near Greytail Falls before ultimately reaching Gargoyle Crossing. Although the bridge was made from sturdy stone, the sudden chill had rendered it partially unstable due to cracking. With no other recourse, the survivors slowly began to make their way across. However, what they didn't actually know is that the rivers of Twinpool and Swift Run hadn't actually simply frozen in place. They churned and crystallized into massive waves of ice that morphed into a colossal glacier, moving at unprecedented speeds. This torrent of slush drove its way across the mountains and ravine, triggering a colossal avalanche, burying the bridge and those who dared to cross it in tons of ice and snow. Only one person is said to have survived the ordeal, a young girl who would one day become a leading figure in the heretics that opposed Ishgard. As for Gargoyle Crossing, nothing seems to really remain. The ice and snow that once engulfed the ravine has since retreated, though you can still see the remnants of the event in the Coerthas Central Highlands, where a waterfall of icy debris seems frozen in place. That being said, the bridge did once stand just north of Greytail Falls. If we take a look at the ravine today, you can find large boulders of ice piled at the basin. While some might be simply part of the mountain, others might be remnants of the bridge itself. In particular, this line of icy rock is almost in the exact same place as the bridge, facing the same direction. It's possible, but not proven, that the crumbled stones that fell were covered in ice, and there they remained, with the souls of those whose lives were lost in that terrible accident. As far as the location known as Snowcloak, it's essentially what remains of that powerful glacier. Once thought to be completely inaccessible, it wasn't until recently that heretics, led by the very same girl who survived, carved their way through the debris and instituted a network of tunnels. Though the heretics are no longer present, we will be exploring some of these tunnels to see what might remain within. Right away you can see just how powerful the slush from the avalanche was. Massive swaths of land were torn to shreds, locked in place by its icy killer. The ice itself is almost pouring through the rocks, so even though it's still today, you can see the pathways the water took as it rushed down. That being said, the ice isn't entirely frozen. Just at the edge we can see how it's melted. While most rivers are often frozen on top and not underneath, Snowcloak is not a naturally occurring river. It's possible that, maybe, just maybe, temperatures in Coerthas could one day be restored as time goes on, and we may very well be witnessing that effect in this cold, isolated pool. One of the first things you'll notice upon entering these hidden tunnels is that the ice, after all these years, still harbors over-aspected properties. Incredible frosted bushes line the halls, and piercing icicles jut out from the walls. Goliath crystals wind their way from floor to ceiling, like veins of ethereal energy, each one glowing brightly and just as deadly as they are beautiful. But these icy monoliths are hardly the only artifacts spread through the corridor. As I said before, these tunnels were constructed by heretics who wished to operate near Ishgard, but well hidden, and although they've been driven from the caverns, many of their possessions still remain. One series of notable items are these iron furnaces. Their soft golden glow gives a much-needed reprieve from the freezing temperatures, and they serve to illuminate the path forward. Luckily, they're still in working order. It's near the end of this pass that we find our first signs of a struggle. One of the furnaces have been knocked over, and what remains of a couple tents lie shredded and dismantled. And while this alone speaks volume to the harrowing conditions suffered by these accused heretics, it is the next chamber that really exposes the desperation of their final moments. This massive chamber has been dubbed Corruption, and contains what remains of the accused heretics' camp. Massive scaffolding still stands where the walls of the cave would be chipped away by workers, and ropes intended to keep others a safe distance from the construction are still pinned to the ground, left to sway in a gentle, frosty wind. Crates, barrels, and pots that hold the life-sustaining supplies are left abandoned, preyed upon by the many wolves that ravage the path. Tents lie in tatters or collapse under the weight of isolation, while campfires still hold unmistakable signs of charred wood. Perhaps most compelling are the remains of tables, still donning bottles of mulled wine and mugs, left exactly as they were before those who drank had to flee deeper into the tunnels. All of this paints a very clear picture into the lives of those who wished for warmth, and passed their free time in leisurely fashions, no different than anyone else. Access to the deeper recesses of a cave is blocked by a wooden gate, the key of which is in a possession of a massive bear. I couldn't tell you whether this was intentional by the cave dwellers or if it was picked up in the aftermath, but what I can say is never try to offer it a certain fizzing drink, for it neither cares nor knows what that is, and it will attempt to maul you all the same. One of the creatures that skulks the halls of silence is a massive creature known as Wandel. This behemoth is actually a golem made entirely of ice that was created by the primal Shiva. It holds extensions of her power and is capable of creating snowdrifts that can inflict frostbite in mere seconds. A powerful sentry, left to its own devices in the wake of abandonment. Just outside Silence, we can catch our first glimpse into what remains of the mountains after being torn to shreds by the glacier. This valley hasn't been seen since the days of Gargoyle Crossing, except by the accused heretics. As you can see, there isn't much to glean from the surroundings. The weather is cripplingly fierce, with gusts of wind inflicting devastating burns in moments, and a mass of swirling clouds create whiteout conditions that could leave you falling to your death with one wrong step. As much as I would like to mount an expedition to the unknown, I lack the proper equipment to go that far, so we'll instead contain ourselves to the confines of Snowcloak and progress to our next stop, Conviction. Guarding the path forward is a towering monster known as a Yeti. While I can't say for certain if this animal is here at the whims of Shiva, I can tell you it's a common enough creature. Yeti thrived for thousands of years in Abalathia's spine, before the calamity-wrought Ice Age over Coerthas. This allowed the Yetis to migrate from the peaks onto the Coerthan plains, where they saw new and enticing prey. Many locals call Yetis snowmen, but rest assured there's nothing manlike about them, so I strongly advise you to not start a conversation with one. The next hall is littered with the same tendril-like ice crystals. One thing you'll note about Snowcloak is the abundance of ice sprites. These silly creatures actually lack any sentience, and are inherently animated chunks of etheric magic. They're drawn to similar aspects as themselves, so you'll find them thriving in these caves. The last leg of Conviction looks to be a large atrium, and at first glance, that's all it is. But if you'll notice, there's a series of branching tunnels that aren't quite as deep as the story they tell. Cursory examinations suggest this room may have actually been a point where the accused heretics attempted to dig tunnel after tunnel, only to fail on multiple occasions before finding a path they could actually take advantage of. Currently, the passages are frequently blocked by ice and contain a variety of native creatures, likely reutilizing this space as an ambush point for intruders. Contempt is a section that bears the most recent sign of use. Notably, a massive door, barred by frozen wood, contains a yet unexplored passage. But without tearing the barrier down, we have no way to progress in this direction. Logs are also nailed into the ice, giving footholds to anyone passing through. Once containing heretics that would transfigure into dragons, all that remains outside of the structures are the burning torches, supplies coated in rime, and paltry tables beholding to the simplest of creature comforts. Wine, preservatives, and even decks of playing cards sit, encrusted with ice, and forever bound to the tables as echoes of time. The final stop within the shadows of Snowcloak is the deepest recess we can find, a large chamber known only as Oblivion. It's here that a massive whorehound known as Fenrir stalks the hall. Whorehounds used to be a common occurrence in Coerthas before the rise of Ishgard, forcing them into the mountains. But when the snows came, these creatures descended their abodes once more and returned to the plains, much like the Yeti. This particular specimen is beholden to the leader of the heretics, Lady Iceheart. It is so named after the legendary spirit hound Fenrir, and is said to be reminiscent of Moonlight, with a demeanor just as cold. It forever stands vigil over the object that so many heretics died to protect, a single aetherite that, when touched, spirits you away to the distant dominion of Shiva herself. And as much as I would like to carelessly venture forth onto that beautiful locale, I will have to wait until another video when I cover the Primal herself. With the conflict of Ishgard and the heretics, the memory of those who lost their lives in the disaster of Gargoyle Crossing seems to have almost been buried under the weight of Snowcloak as well. And so, the next time you find yourself in the shadow of this icy Goliath, I ask that you not think of Ishgard or the heretics, and instead place a campfire with friends to raise a glass for those who struggled to reach salvation, but never could. Hello, and thanks so much for watching this video. A bit sad, for sure, but what can you expect from such a disaster? Regardless of the content, I hope you found it a fascinating trip into the history of the dungeon, and actually find yourself in a somehow happy state. This video was a lot of fun to make, and right off the bat, I'd like to give a shout out to the person who correctly guessed the video, Campos Force 93. I know this was a long time coming, but well done. I'm also sure you've guessed by now that behind me there is no such clue for the next video. Unfortunately, there won't be a contest this time around, but not because of anything bad. On the contrary, there's something very exciting happening for the next video. It's so big, in fact, that the details need to be kept secret for now. But I hope you'll keep an eye out for updates as the days come, because it's an incredible undertaking, and I'm excited to share with you all. So if you enjoyed this video and want to stay up to date, be sure to like, share, and sub to the channel. If you haven't already, please feel free to join my Discord in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, you can find a link to my Patreon as well. There you can give as little as $1 and be featured in the credits, or as much as $15 and be featured in a video. Until then, this has been the Eorzean Historian, signing off until our next great adventure. Ciao for now!